Welcome back to the Get Unstuck and On Target podcast. I'm Mike O'Neill with Bench Builders, and we help growing companies, especially manufacturers, improve their people, process, and planning systems so they can scale smarter and faster. Joining me again is Rachel Druckenmiller. Rachel is the founder of Unmuted. She's a national thought leader in the field of employee engagement and well-being, and she has facilitated 300 plus virtual learning experiences in the last 2 years alone. Rachel is a keynote speaker, workshop facilitator, and a leadership trainer. Let me keep bragging on her. Last year, in 2021, Rachel was recognized by Forbes as a Next 1000 honoree. Rachel has been featured on many podcasts, and I'm so pleased that she was able to kind of join us again. Welcome back, Rachel.
Thanks, Mike. We always have. I have to say, the podcast we did last time around, the Engaged Exhausted, is still one of the podcasts that I've been on that I share most frequently, because you just asked such great questions, and it was a wonderful conversation that was super relevant. So thanks for being so good at what you do.
Well, thank you. Can you believe that has been over a year since we've recorded that podcast?
No.
My goodness. And for
Wow.
those who are listening, we're recording this the very 1st of May, so it'll probably be into June before this would be made available. But that topic that we discussed last time, it pretty much informs what you and I discussed as what we should pick up on. And so we've kind of entitled this episode, Recalibrating and Resetting, Navigating the Next Normals. So why don't we just break that title down? Rachel, when you volunteered that as a title, recalibrating and resetting, let's start with that. What do those two terms mean to you?
Well, I think in the midst of so much change and uncertainty, there's a need at a certain point to sort of press a pause button or press the reset button and to do some reflection, to take an inventory of what's working and what's not, to apply that to both our professional lives, our careers, and also to our life outside of that. And to even give ourselves an experience of rest and respite, because in the midst of so much change, in the midst of so much stress and tension, I think it's really important that we take a moment to even step away from that. Sometimes a weekend away, sometimes a true weekend off, which I don't know about, everyone listening, but sometimes I feel like there's some part of every weekend where I'm doing some part of work. I mean, being an entrepreneur, I feel like can sometimes come with the territory, but to really take a true break and to recalibrate. So I'll give you an example of a recent recalibration.
Please.
My husband and I, we went away for Easter, and we visited friends of ours in Ohio that used to they lived near us. They were neighbors, 5 minutes away for 10 to 12 years. Very, very good friends. They've got 3 kids, and they moved back home to Ohio just before the pandemic started. And the guy was, my husband, I'd say his best friend locally. And so just really, really big loss. He was in our wedding, to have them move. And so we decided, I had to be in Cleveland for work the following week, and they live a half hour from where I had to be. So we were like, well, why don't we just go there for Easter? And we had 3 days at their house, and we made meals together. We played games. We watched Sing 2 and Ted Lasso, and played basketball outside. The guys went golfing. We just caught up. We had time to just be with each other and to not feel rushed. We didn't have to be anywhere else other than where we were in that moment. We were there for their 4-year-old daughter's just birthday party with family. They had just kind of a small gathering, and we, played some games the last night we were there, just the adults, and laughed so hard our stomachs hurt. I mean, truly, I feel like those moments of laughter are unfortunately more rare than I'd like to admit, but I left that weekend, and the next day I was talking to my business coach, and I said, he commented on kind of my demeanor, and he said, I can just sense that there's something really kind of different about your energy. And I told him what happened, and he said, what I'm sensing is the sense of shalom, which shalom meaning peace, but also meaning, from his perspective, nothing missing, nothing broken. And that's how I felt. And that was, for me, that was like a calibration and a reset that I had by sometimes it helps to remove ourselves from our normal environment in order to recalibrate and reset. Sometimes it
You-
involves, spending time with other people. And so that was just an example of one, 3-day experience.
We're only halfway through the title, but let's go back to something. You said hit the pause button.
Yeah.
And so we're recording this on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the bottom, you see all these icons at the bottom, but one of them is pause/stop. We, every single day, if you're recording something, we can just hit that button and it just does it for you. What is it about you? What about me? What is it about us that hitting the pause button, we're so reluctant to do so?
I think we don't. I think we're reluctant to do it because we pride ourselves on our usefulness and what we're checking off our to-do list. And so a pause would require us to not be in that place of doing. And sometimes that place of doing, even if it's exhausting, is familiar and comfortable. And so generally speaking, humans gravitate toward the familiar. And so for many of us, the familiar is kind of like we talked about last time, burned out, exhausted, or, overdone, not stopping, focused on achievement and accomplishment. And so we don't take the time to pause because essentially what it does is it interrupts our sense of identity of I'm not someone who pauses and stops and slows down. I'm somebody who keeps going and pushes through. And so I think for part of it, it can be almost this interruption, this dissonance with how we see ourselves of other people have time to do that. That's a luxury. And for some people, it might not be a luxury. Like if somebody's a single mom or they've got, they're caregiving for somebody and they're living paycheck to paycheck. The reality is for some people, it may be harder for them. And I think everybody has the capacity at a bare minimum to pause long enough to reach out to somebody that they know and say, hey, do you have a minute to talk? Or I'm dealing with this thing. I'm feeling really overwhelmed. I just need to connect with somebody. Do you have a moment to talk? I think everybody has the capacity to do that, no matter how exhausted we are. But I think so much of our hesitation is because it interferes with and interrupts the belief we have about ourselves that our value comes from when we're doing, and our value does not come from when we are resting and pausing and stopping.
You share an example where you and your husband went to Ohio, and over a 3-day period, you just basically unplugged. Yeah. And the things that you did are the things that our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents might have just done. And that is you were just with each other, enjoying each other's company. And that sounds like that's something you personally don't do a lot. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, for extended periods of time, there's a moment where it's like, oh, Saturday night, we went to get dinner with a friend and went to an Orioles game. And that was a total of 5 hours of together time. But there's something about my coach, he called it a friendcation. He's like, maybe we need to integrate quarterly friendcations as part of your routine and ritual.
Oh, I love it. Great concept.
Like that idea, right? A friendcation. And the fact is, it's not like we were tourists. I mean, for Easter Sunday, they went and did some stuff with their family, and Bill and I went into Cleveland and we went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and we had lunch together because I was going to be gone from home for a full week after that for work, and I wasn't going to see him for a week. And so I said, let's give ourselves a little bit of recalibration time to be with each other, to engage in a novel experience. There's something really rejuvenating about engaging in novelty. And so going to a place we've never been before, engaging in an activity that we've never done before, that we haven't done in a while, that we both enjoy. So that was something that was new. And when we have novelty, there's a certain level of excitement to it, And so I think that's something that extended time, even if it's an overnight. We have another friend, they have 2 boys. They live about 45, 50 minutes from us, one of my best friends from college. And sometimes we have sleepovers. We'll go to their house on like a Saturday afternoon. We'll either get takeout or make dinner together. They have a theater, a small theater, like in their basement. And so we'll sit down there and we'll watch a movie on this big screen. And then we'll make breakfast together the next day. They love games, so we play games through the afternoon, and we'll usually leave, 24-ish hours after we got there. And that feels like a mini getaway just because, again, there was no work, there was playfulness, there was connection, and there was engaging in something as a collective that we all benefited from, whether that was making a meal. It's usually what it is. So I think that extended time of more than just a few hours is something that is particularly impactful. So,
I don't want to overanalyze your trip to Ohio, but what I'm now understand is that you not only spent really incredible quality time with friends and their family, but while there, you also worked on the relationship with your husband. And you did those things and that would be, you said, novel, that you would not do otherwise, knowing that you're going to have an extended period of time of separation. Did you experience a sense of shalom as a result of that?
oh, I mean, yeah, like it lasted with me the full week. I was at a retreat that week, and the last time I was, at this retreat, I felt like I was a lot in my head and I was maybe a bit more guarded and not fully present. I just felt like I was so present because I had been so filled up. I mean, truly in every way, emotionally, mentally, in terms of rest. I slept really well every night at their house. Like all of the aspects of all the little tanks, that are in part of my life were all filled up in some way. So then when I went in to start the week, knowing I was going to be away from home, it was coming from a place of nothing broken, nothing missing, so that I could be fully present. It was like that feeling of being present is something that I felt I carried with me into the week ahead. So such a gift, and I would recommend. I mean, Friendcation. I'd encourage people to think about people that you really enjoy being with. That's really life giving for you. And they have three. I mean, they have an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 4-year-old. So it's not like these are easy years of parenting.
Yes.
But we play. I mean, there's a game called Skip Bow. It's a card game that their 8-year-old son was super into. We played 3 rounds of it, and he just probably would have played 5 more if I'd taken 5 or 6 more hours to do that. But it was just this really joyful moment of what almost like communal living must feel like, a little glimpse of what it must feel like to live in like a cooperative or a communal space. So I would just encourage anyone listening to think about who is someone or who are some people or who is a family that I really, whether you're single or married or have kids, that I really enjoy being with, what would it look like if even for a long weekend, we just plan to get together and spend time with each other? What would that look like?
Yes.
And plan it.
We opened by saying the title of this episode is going to be Recalibrating and Resetting. And we've kind of begun to touch on that. But that after the colon, navigating the next normals, that term normals, plural, what does that mean to you?
Well, I think a lot of times in the midst of the pandemic, people said, oh, we were going back to normal. And then eventually, even though some people are still digging their heels in about it, we've come to recognize that ship has sailed. There is no going back to the way things were. You can't undo what has happened in the past 2 years. And we have been fundamentally changed and shifted collectively and individually. So when we think about, I like to make it plural because it's iterative, right? What's normal today, 6 months from now might shift again. And I think one of the things that makes change so hard is when we get tied into one way of how things are. And we have an expectation that that's how it's always going to be. And then when something disrupts that, we're completely thrown off because we're like, it's like GPS, rerouting, recalibrating. And we're in this state of we're constantly having to learn a new way of living or working or doing or being. And that in and of itself can be fundamentally exhausting. So first of all, if anyone's feeling exhausted, just want to recognize that is a normal experience of going through this iterative process of navigating change and understanding new ways of how things are. So when I think of the next normals, I think it's just acknowledging that life will continue to change. It was never static before. It's just the degree to which it's changed is so much more pronounced now that we're hyper aware of it. Everyone's collectively aware of it. So I think just making the choice to acknowledge that things are going to continue to change. There's going to continue to be uncertainty, and the extent to which we can recognize that we may not be able to change what's happening to us or around us, but we get to always control our response. Drawing on Viktor Frankl's work in Man's Search for Meaning, that we always get to choose our response. We always get to choose our attitude. We always get to choose how we show up no matter what's going on around us. And one of those choices can be, I'm going to accept some of these changes that I may not like so that I can free up my energy to move forward in a more productive way.
Regular listeners know that this is an unscripted conversation. So I'm going to throw one out to you that you probably didn't see coming.
Great.
I just thought of it. And that
I love
is,
it.
we know you as a keynote speaker.
Uh-huh.
But your natural personality comes through loud and clear. If you're listening, you can just see that your eyes are lit up. If you're watching, you can see how quickly Rachel lights up, she smiles. But when you're on, you're in a keynote setting. How do you help take whatever it is you're sharing as a keynoter and reduce it to practicality? Is that something that people yearn for?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, people, they absolutely they want to walk away from an experience. They want to feel inspired. They want to feel a sense of possibility. They want to feel connected. They want to feel more alive, and they want to feel equipped to take action. So I was doing a keynote recently with a group of women leaders in the higher education space. And after the session, so I talk about unmuting yourself and being bold and courageous and being your own advocate. And that's part of the focus of the workshop that I'm going to be doing for Simon Sinek's team, is speaking up at work. And people left that session. And one of the things I talk about, it might just be a question that I ask, right? A question can open up a whole new world of possibilities for people. So if I say, who gets the best of you and who gets what's left of you, that alone might hit someone in such a way that they're like, ooh, wow, that alone is getting me to have a realization that's going to get me to shift. Like someone heard that question and then went and apologized to her son and husband for how she's been showing up because she just didn't recognize it. Or I talk about the importance of, not living a life of regret, and how the number one regret of people on their deathbed is, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. And that, and how the importance of going for it and be willing to live a life of, even if it means a life of rejection, so that you don't live a life of regret. And I heard stories after the event of one woman was sitting at a table with her peers the next morning talking about how there was this new opportunity that she was saying, I'm not sure if I want to apply, I don't know. And the whole table was like, you've got to go for it. Like, you've got to at least try. So it's sort of this more confident self emerges in people, and this sense of, well, why not? Let me go for it. Or another person left, as I talk about my burnout journey in that keynote too, and how we silence ourselves and we don't ask for the help that we need or for what we want, or we don't speak up when we're struggling. And so she left the session and booked 2 vacations. Yeah. So like people walk away and they do stuff because they feel something. Like we make changes when we feel something.
I just realized you could very easily take on as sponsors travel agencies, because you do kind of instill, gosh, I just got to get away. You just mentioned in passing, but I want to come back to it. Just before we hit the record button, you shared with me something new that you've been asked to do with the Simon Sinek organization. Tell us a little more about what is it you're going to be doing for them?
Yeah, so I'm going to be one of their live online course instructors, which I'm super excited about. And my friend and mentor of mine, Kristen, she connected me to the opportunity. I've known her for maybe 4 years. And I remember the first time I met her, I said to her, I want to do like my own version of what you're doing. Because I had heard her speak at kind of like an intimate conference and gathering that I was at, and about 40 people or so in my industry. And then a year later, I made the decision, like I was out, I left my job and I launched my own business. So she's like, you said it and then you did it. And so much of my journey so much of how I've gotten to where I am in my career is because I advocated for myself from a very young age, of speaking up and asking for what I needed and for what I wanted, and inserting myself into opportunities, and not being someone who hid my accomplishments, but someone who made them known as a way to help grow my career. And so that's one of the things that I feel passionate about helping other people do, is to speak up, and might be asking for a vacation, or might be asking for support, so that you can continue, so that you can recalibrate, so that you can reset. You're not a machine. To acknowledge, what routines and rituals do I need to put in place to help me create a sustainable life, And so when we build the confidence to speak up and ask for what we need and want, we're more likely to get it. You don't ask, you never ask, there's a pretty low chance you're going to get. But if you ask for what you need and want, there's a better chance you're going to get it, because someone might not even know that you needed what you're asking for. People are not mind readers, So anyway, tangent, but that's what I'm going to be doing.
Well, it's a tangent I put you on just to bring it full circle. The name of your business is called Unmuted, and therefore you're helping those who you speak to find their voice, to ask for the things that they need, that we all need at our core. One of the things we've talked about today is just the need to be able to push the pause button. It may not be a week. It may not be a long weekend. It could be just a few hours, but the restorative power of hitting that pause button. Rachel, given the theme of this podcast, and because of who you are and what you do, would you think of a situation where either you or someone got stuck? And what did it take to get unstuck?
So I'll give a personal example and I'll give a professional example.
Okay.
Personal example is I fell out of a routine of exercising in a very consistent way years ago, let's be honest. And then when I was involved, got hit by a pickup truck in May of 2020 and fractured my back and injured my ankle. Exercise routine was out the window because I was just trying to recover, and regain any strength and functionality. And so it was like, exercise was like, yeah, nice, eventually. And so I noticed that I had not been consistent, was kind of making excuses for that. And so when I was at this retreat last week, we had 2 yoga classes, first thing in the morning. There was a yoga instructor who was there on Tuesday and a Wednesday, or Wednesday and Thursday. And so I came back, I remembered how good it felt to just expand and open up. And a lot of the times when we move our body, we move our mind, like move the body to move the brain. And so I was we have a Peloton bike, and there on the app, there's all these yoga classes that you can take. And there's another yoga channel called Yoga with Adriene, whose yoga videos I love. They're all free on YouTube, and you can find so many things free on YouTube. Never have to pay for a yoga class, but this particular app, I love the Peloton app because I can stream it to my TV, and then I can pick the kind of music I want to listen to, and I'm like, all right, I've got 10 minutes, or I've got 20 minutes, or I've got a half hour. And I just put my yoga mat out the night before, and put my clothes out the night before, and put the blocks out the night before. It's those little things that when I get up in the morning, I have less decision fatigue because I've already set the environment to be conducive. And now I'm like, well, my clothes are already out. The mat's already on the floor. Like, I might as well you were just going to spend a half hour scrolling on social media anyway, Rachel. You might as well take a half hour and do something good for your body and your mind, So that's like a personal unstucking. I would say that I'm getting back into that routine 4 days in a row. I've done yoga now.
Congratulations.
Thanks. And I'll celebrate. It's like 4 days. It may not be 48 days or whatever, but hey, it's 4 days. And I'm going to do my best to keep a routine up, even if it's only 10 minutes a day. Like, the consistency of the routine is more important than the duration of the exercise.
Well said.
So Atomic Habits, James Clear would be a good place to get more on that for anyone who wants to dig into habit formation. And then the professional example was I was just speaking at a conference in Louisville, Kentucky, and I was with a group of executives, several hundred executives in the building service contracting industry. So they run companies that do commercial cleaning and landscaping and security and facilities maintenance. And so they're working with people that are making, $12, $13 an hour for the most part, right? And the focus of my session was around what employees really want from work, and what we can do to create workplace experiences that are more aligned with what people really want. And so the 3 factors I talked about, and we can share in the show notes an article I've written about this before too, if you'd like. It was cause, community, and careers. They want a sense of purpose. So I invite them, share stories of purpose. They want a sense of community connection and belonging. And they want to work for an organization that supports their career growth and development. So what we did is we split the room in half. And for the last third or so of the experience, I was the closing keynote on the final day of the event. And so they got into groups, and one of the groups was focused on how might we foster community connection and care in our organizations? What are we already doing that's working? What are some new ideas we might try? Then they get together and brainstorm and sticky notes and all that kind of stuff. And the other group was focused on how might we support people's career growth and development. And so as a result of doing this, they then come up with all these ideas. We captured and gathered them in on Mentimeter. an online, polling platform to get all their responses, and then sent those out afterwards. And there was a woman who came up to me after the speech was over, and she's like, thank you so much for doing this. She wanted to get a picture. This is like new to me that people want to get pictures together, but I'm like, yes, let's do it. And she said, I am walking away with so many great ideas, and I'm feeling so energized and excited to bring this back to my company. And to me, what stood out from that comment is that as a speaker, it's easy to just get up on stage and tell your stories and then like expect people to walk away thinking you're awesome and feeling inspired. But people learn best when they're actively participating in an experience. And so because they got to share with each other and learn from their peers, the ideas that emerged from that were so much more relevant and likely impactful and interesting than anything I would have come up with as an outsider. So just reminding people of their creativity by giving them an experience to use it is something that I think any organization could be doing more of right now. And you can do that in person and you can do it virtually. And it never ceases to amaze me how prolific people can be with their ideas when you just ask the right kind of a question and invite them into that space.
So one thing I can count on you from an idea standpoint, you're not only a fantastic speaker, as we can obviously hear, but you're also a gifted writer. And in many of the things that you post, you share resources. You've already shared another book, Atomic Habits. Right before we hit the record button, you introduced me to a new book that I did not know about. I think it's Flux, is that correct?
Yeah, Flux. I think it's April Rinne, I guess her name, or Rinne, Rin, I'm not sure. Rinne is her last name. So I have that. I've been reading that on my Kindle, and I think that's a good book to be reading right now, just to explore your own thoughts and beliefs and get new perspective on navigating change. Like one of the things she talks about is how we tend to dislike change that is imposed upon us. Like if it's a change that we choose, we're much more like, hey, I want to move, or I want to change jobs, or I want to get out of this relationship, or I want to go on this trip or whatever. If it's a change we choose, it's generally, there's less resistance. But if a change that was imposed upon us and we didn't have a say, we lose some of our sense of autonomy. That's when people can get defensive and a little crispy.
Well, that's a good word, crispy. As we reflect on this conversation and you kind of were to say, gosh, Mike, if I was to summarize the things I really want the listeners to have as takeaways, what might some of those be?
I would say to take a moment and to grab a pen and paper and to think about what are the experiences that generally help you to reset, to recharge, and to recalibrate. Anything that comes to mind. Set a timer for 2 minutes and just give yourself, or set a timer for 3 minutes or whatever, just set a timer and write down whatever comes to mind. And then look at that list and say, which of these things could I do more consistently? Which of these things would I be most excited to do in the next month? Which of these things could I do in the next week? Which of these things could I do today? And to start to break it down in that form and say, what are some of the rhythms I want to create in my life? What are some of these rhythms of reflection or rest or pause that I want to integrate into my life more consistently? Which connects us back to the conversation around burnout last time, right? When we're not integrating these rhythms of rest, we tend to burn out. So I think just having a moment of honest self-reflection and giving yourself the space to come up with those ideas would be an important thing. And then I would invite you to look at your calendar and then literally pick a date on which you're going to do one of those things and tell someone else about it, whether that's reaching out to somebody to make a plan for something so you feel more sense of accountability and it's harder to back out. So I think that would be one thing I would suggest, would be to have that moment of reflection and commitment. And then the other thing I would say is to recognize that going through change is hard. The brain hates change. My dad always says the only person who likes change is a baby in a wet diaper. I think is funny. And it's true. Like the brain is lazy. The brain fundamentally wants what's familiar and consistent. Anything that comes up as unfamiliar of, I don't know what to do with this. This is unfamiliar. This does not look like the others. The brain then has to work harder. And we've been going through a lot of that in the past 2 years. And so I think part of it is acknowledging how hard it is to do that, and to give yourself some grace, and to acknowledge that, I'm doing the best I can with what I have, with the energy, resources, insight, perspective, experience, support available to me at any moment. I'm doing the best I can with what I have, and so is everybody else. And to just give yourself a moment of grace, I think, is so important in the midst of change. If you'd like, I have one more very quick one I can offer.
Please.
I give them 3. The last thing I would invite you to do is to think about a time in your life. I call this when one door closes, another opens. Think about a moment in your life where you went through an unexpected change that you did not like or want. And then write about what happened, and write about an unexpected positive outcome that emerged from that experience, that with perspective now you can look back on and see and appreciate and recognize. So those would be 3 things. A lot of them involve some degree of self-reflection and pausing and doing all the things we're talking about today, and making and committing and recommitting, and then also giving yourself some grace and a reminder of the fact that you can get through things that are difficult, and that there might be some potentially unexpected benefit to something that you're going through right now that's hard.
You just use a phrase, committing and recommitting. And you also use the terms, give yourself some grace. But what I'm hearing is that sometimes we try it and it doesn't work, but don't abandon it, that you need to try again, that we naturally will resist these new behaviors, even if they're good behaviors.
Yep.
That's our natural tendency. Rachel, in terms of if people want to learn more and reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that with you? How to reach you online?
Yeah, best way, LinkedIn. It's where I'm most present most often, as you know. So follow me. My LinkedIn is defaulted to follow. So if you want to connect, click the little 3 dots next to where it says more info or something. You can connect, send a message. Mike and I always love to hear, right, when someone listens to an episode and really has some insight from it that's beneficial. We love knowing it's not weird. It's like, we like when people reach out and tell us. So please, if you've been impacted by this episode, reach out and let us know. So LinkedIn would be a primary way. If you want to learn more about the classes I'm doing with Simon Sinek's company, you can just go to simonsinek.com and click on live online classes. And those are for individuals. And then if you want, to bring me into, if I work with organizations, leaders and teams, conferences, associations, all that kind of stuff as a speaker, facilitator, and trainer. And so the easiest way to do that, again, LinkedIn or on my website, unmutedlife.com. There's a place you can go where it's work with me, and you could, book like a 15 or 20 minute discovery call if you have, an organization or association that you think would benefit from what I'm doing. So, and this is one of the things I talk about, is how to navigate change and give people some confidence. Just like that one woman came up to me and said, wow, I was feeling depleted and I was feeling overwhelmed, and now I feel energized and equipped. Like that's what I want people to leave experiences with me thinking and feeling. So
you've given us a number of ways that we can reach out to you. We will include those in the show notes. Okay. And for those listening, and you say, gosh, this was a really great episode, I want to go find the other episode that she's on. I just kind of looked it up while you were speaking. It was episode number 29. This episode, I think, is going to be episode number 80. So if you go back to the Bench Builder podcast archive, it's episode number 29, and you can hear that first installment that Rachel and I recorded over a year ago. Rachel, again, what a treat. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this was great. I hope that it gives people opportunity to pause and to recalibrate and do something good for themselves. And I always love talking to you.
Well, it's mutual. I also want to thank our listeners for joining us today. We upload the latest episode on Apple, Google, and Spotify every Thursday. So if you've enjoyed this episode with Rachel, please subscribe. I've got a question for you, the listener. Is your company growing quickly? Are you worried that you won't have the right people and processes in place to handle that increased workload? Or maybe you're not sure if you've got the right planning systems in place. If you answered yes to any of those, let's talk. You can go to our website, bench-builders.com, to schedule a discovery call. We'll explore ways to help you solve those nagging problems so you can scale faster and smarter. So I want to thank you for joining us, and I hope you have picked up on some tips from Rachel that will help you get unstuck and on target. Until next time.